Hi everybody and welcome to James' House of Rock. Today's topics are Shinedown, Stained, and Godsmack. Now I'm putting these three together because not only do they all have ties to the Massachusetts area, but I have seen all of them together in the Uproar Festival, which I have talked about in previous episodes. Our first topic is Shinedown. They formed in 2001 in Jacksonville, Florida, with current members Brent Smith on vocals, Zach Myers on lead guitar, and since 2008, bass 2007 to 2008, and rhythm guitar 2005 to 2007. This guy has done a lot in this band. He better be appreciated very much. Coincidentally, Eric Bass plays bass, and Barry Kirsch is on drums. That's the current lineup, but their former lineup is included Brad Stewart on bass, Jason Todd on lead guitar, and Nick Perry on bass guitar. Their first album, Leave a Whisper, was released May 27th, 2003 under Atlantic Records and was produced by Bob Marlett. It had the singles Fly From the Inside, 45, and Simple Man, which is a Lynyrd Skynyrd cover, and as well as Burning Bright. Simple Man was actually only released on the deluxe edition because they played it live acoustically right here in Boston on our local station WAAF, and fans everywhere asked where they could buy it, so they included the song on the deluxe edition of the album. Leave a Whisper has been certified platinum, reaching number 53 on Billboards. Their next album, Us and Them, was released October 4th, 2005 under Atlantic Records, produced by Tony Battaglia, singles Save Me, I Dare You, and Heroes. This one went down a little bit, only being certified gold, which is still impressive. This one, although being lower than platinum, reached up the billboards a little bit at number 23. And this was their last album with Jason and Brad. The song I Dare You was used in a few different WWE pay-per-views matches, which tends to be a bit of a trend with using songs. In fact, I talk about one of the other Stain songs used in it. Their next one, and personally my favorite, was The Sound of Madness, which was released June 24th, 2008 under Atlantic Records and was produced by one of my favorite producers, Rob Cavallo. Rob Cavallo is the producer for My Chemical Romance as well, which is why I love him so much. Singles Devour and Second Chance, which was one of the extremely big singles for them. Sound of Madness, If You Only Knew, and The Crow and the Butterfly. What a Shame is about Brent's uncle who died during the recording of this album, which is actually very sad and makes the song all make sense. This one went further up the billboards at number 8. Their next one, Amaryllis, was released March 27th, 2012 under Atlantic Records. This one was also produced by Rob Cavallo and had the singles Bully, Unity, Enemies, I'll Follow You, Adrenaline, and Through the Ghost. This one was certified gold and reached number 4 on billboards. The single Bully is actually a bit of a PSA about preventing bullying, and the video definitely portrays that as well as the lyrics. I suggest you watch the video for that. In fact, watch all the videos on these singles. They're all just fantastic, especially Enemies, which it's actually really cool. The video for Enemies is they're all sitting in a band meeting, just talking out news, and then they start arguing and throwing the chairs at each other. One of them slams the coffee pot on the other one's head, and they all walk out of the room just all calm and bleeding and bruised, just nothing happened, see you next week. They just kind of brush off that entire 4-minute fight that they just had. As well as the video for Through the Ghost is actually, it's not anything too over the top, but it's just a really cool video because it fits the atmosphere of the song so well. So I suggest you just watch all of the videos made for this album because they're all really good. Shinedown has always been very good at their music videos. There is an ebook for this album called For Your Sake, Inside the Making of Amaryllis. And For My Sake is actually on the album and is one of my favorite songs. So I suggest you check that out. I bet it's on the Kindle store if you're interested. Their latest release, Threat to Survival, was released September 18th, 2015 under Atlantic Records and was produced by Dave Bassett, Pete Nappy, Eric Bass, and Scott the Ninja Stevens. Now, I want to know the story behind why he is called the Ninja, and I will put it on my website when I find out, because I really want to know where that nickname came from. It had the singles Cut the Cord and State in My Head. I love the single Cut the Cord so much so that when the album came out, I went opening day and got the copy of it. This was a large departure from their older sound, and they actually got a major feedback from fans not liking the change in sound. Brent Smith actually came out on Facebook yelling at his fans for not letting a band evolve. And I totally agree with that aspect, and that a band should be allowed to change their musical style and or evolve as a band as much as they would like. It really shouldn't be up to the fans. But I honestly, in my opinion, don't see that much of a departure. Like, there is definitely a change in their sound between this one and their previous albums, but I don't think it was enough for a big revolt about it. So you listen to it. You email me your thoughts about the album. Our next topic is Godsmack. They were formed in 1995, very close to here in Lawrence, Massachusetts, with current members Sully Erna on vocals, Robbie Morell on bass, Tony Rombola on lead guitar, and Shannon Larkin on drums. Now, that's their current lineup, but some of their former members is Lee Richards on lead guitar, Tommy Stewart on drums, and Joe DeArco also on drums. Now, I find it very funny, and I have mentioned this on previous episodes, that bands always seem to go through drummers like nothing. Just every band that I've covered, or almost every band that I've covered, has had like 2 or 3 past members that were drummers. In fact, Sully Erna is an amazing drummer, and only had to stop drumming because he couldn't keep up both singing and drumming. He would be way too tired to cover both. I actually saw them at this Uproar festival, and he came out and did this awesome like dueling drummer kind of thing with the drummer of Godsmack, and they were in 2 giant drum kits that were on spinning pads on the stage, and they were like, as they did these really long drum solos, they were like spinning and trying to compete as to who could like drum a little better. And honestly, they were both like perfect, so I couldn't decide on which one I liked better. Their first demo, I should say, is All Wound Up. It was released July 28th, 1997, under EK Records, but was mainly self-released. It was produced by Sully Erna, and this is the original version of their first major release, Godsmack. When the All Wound Up got so popular, it got the attention of like Universal Records, which went on to release most of their future albums, and they reworked the album just the slightest bit and renamed it to be their first album, Godsmack. It also took the song Going Down off the album and split the intro to Get Up and Get Out as its own track. The first album, Godsmack, was released August 25th, 1998 under Universal Records, as mentioned previously. This one was produced by Sully Erna and Murdoch. Singles Whatever, Keep Away, Voodoo, and Bad Religion. The original version of Voodoo is actually also on Wound Up, and I love this song so much, and it actually has like a hidden like drum part at the end if you wait long enough. There's like a 3-minute almost drum solo hidden track at the end. This one, it reached number 22 on Billboards and had the new song Someone in London in place of the song Going Down, which was on All Wound Up. Their There was actually some controversy surrounding this album because it has suggestive and vulgar language without having a parental advisory sticker. They actually received complaints from a father who whose son bought the album, and actually complained to Walmart, forcing them to take the album off their shelves. Kmart followed soon after. Later, to get them back on store shelves, a parental advisory sticker was added to the album. I have actually not listened to this original album, so I don't know exactly what the vulgar language on this was, but I can't imagine how they would manage to get by without a parental advisory sticker. Their next release, Awake, was released on Halloween of 2000 under Universal Records. This one was also produced by Sully and Murdoch. Singles Awake, Bad Magic, and Greed. Features the song Going Down, which you may remember is from the original All Wound Up and was removed off the first album. This one had a big improvement at number 5 on Billboards, and this was the only Godsmack album with drummer Tony Stewart. Their next album, Faceless, was released April 8th, 2003 under Universal Records. This one being produced by Sully Erna and Dave Bottrow. Singles I Stand Alone, Straight Out of Line, Serenity, and Realign. This one had an even better improvement at number 1 on Billboards. This introduced the drummer and current drummer Shannon Larkin. The video for I Stand Alone is actually footage from The Scorpion King, which the song was featured in. And I think this album cover is actually really cool looking. It has a very cool feeling to it. Their next album, 4, was released April 25th, 2006 under Universal Records and was produced by Sully Erna and Andy Johns. Singles Speak, Shinedown, which I think is kind of cool to be matched with this episode. But this song is 2 words rather than the Shinedown band being 1 word. And The Enemy, this one also hit number 1 on Billboards. Now, I find it a big trend, and I'll actually cover another album that follows this trend, that bands like to label, especially when it gets into the 4th and 5th albums, label the album by what number it is. Like this one's called 4 because it's their 4th release, or later I'll now be covering Stain's Chapter 5, or Chapter V, which is their 5th release. So their next album, and one of my favorites, is The Oracle. It was released May 4th, 2010 under Universal Records and was produced by Sully Erna and Dave Fortman. Singles Crying Like a Bitch, Love, Hate, Sex and Pain, and Saints and Sinners. This was the longest gap between Godsmack albums, which was 4 years compared to the usual 3 or 2 years between albums. This one also hit number 1 on Billboards, and the album, I couldn't find the information as to why, was called Saints and Sinners, probably to match with the title track, but I will try to find the information as to why the album name was switched and maybe cover it later. Their latest release, 100 Horsepower, was released August 5th, 2014 under Republic and Spine Farm Records and was produced by Sully Erna and Dave Fortman. Singles 100 Horsepower, Something Different, and What's Next. This one went down just the slightest bit at number 3 on Billboards, and there are a series of webisodes that you can watch called The Making 100 Horsepower, which I have not watched yet, but I plan to in the future because I think it's really cool when bands do like little series or little like documentaries on the creation of the album, because it's really fun to see what goes into the albums you love. Some of their other releases are the Other Side EP. It was released March 16th, 2004 under Universal Records and was produced by Sully Erna and Dave Bottrow. This EP included acoustic versions of some of their more famous songs of the previous albums, but the reason I'm covering it is because it also had 3 new tracks along with it. Their next album, next release, was Live and Inspired, which was released May 15th, 2012 under Universal Records. This one was produced by Sully Erna himself. On the show, I don't usually cover the live albums of bands because I'm covering the songs on their actual studio albums, but in this case, I'm covering the inspired portion of this album, which was a cover EP that was included with the album. With it includes the radio single that was extremely big for them at the time, of a cover of Rocky Mountain Way. Our third and final topic is Stained. They formed in 1995, very close to here in Springfield, Massachusetts. Current members Aaron Lewis on vocals, Johnny April on bass, Mike Mashak on guitar, and Sal Giancarelli on drums. They only had one former member, which was John Wazowski, also on drums. See, better for the trend, they always switch their drummers out. Their first demo, I should say, was Tormented, which was released 1996 and was by the band, not signed to a record label. Only 3 cassette versions exist of this album, and there were only 4,000 original copies. And the album has never been released in stores, meaning you probably had to have gotten it for Stained's earlier shows. This actually includes the earlier version of the song Mud Shovel, which would be featured on their next album and become a very big single for them. Speaking of their next album was Dysfunction. It was released April 13th, 1999, under Flip and Elektra Records. Singles Suffocate, Just Go, Mud Shovel, and Home. This one reached number 74 on Billboards and was produced by Terry Date and Fred Durst of the band Limp Bizkit. This one, although not performing too well on the Billboards, reached 2 times platinum for selling, which is very impressive. I also really like the album cover for this, the creepy mirrored flip clown. It's just a really cool looking album cover. Their next and one of their biggest releases, also one of my favorites, is Break the Cycle. It was released May 22nd, 2002 under Flip and Elektra Records. Singles It's Been a While, which is one of my favorite songs by them and also probably one of their bigger songs. Outside, Fade, For You, and Epiphany. Produced by Josh Abraham. And this one went a huge improvement from Dysfunction, going all the way up to number 1 on Billboards. I also really like the simplicity of this album cover as well, and kind of the cool album name. This one also had a huge improvement from its predecessor at 5 times platinum, which is very, very impressive for a band to get. Their next release, 14 Shades of Grey, was released May 20th, 2003 under Flip and Elektra Records. This one was also produced by Josh Abraham and reached number 1 on Billboards, but only reached 1 time platinum, which is still very impressive, but after having a 5 times platinum album before is a bit of a downgrade. Their next album, which I also mentioned earlier, is Chapter 5, or Chapter V, which it was released August 9th, 2005 under Flip and Atlantic Records. Singles Right Here, Falling, Everything Changes, and King of Excuses. This one was produced by Dave Bottrill and the band themselves, and also reached number 1 on Billboards, which is a pretty good succession for a band of having that many albums reach number 1 in a row. Right Here was also used in one of the WWE pay-per-view matches, and Aaron Lewis himself has actually stated that this was one of their best albums. And I have actually not listened to the entirety of this one, but maybe you have, so do you agree with Aaron Lewis, or do you have another pick? Email me your choice. Their next one, and possibly my favorite album title ever, was The Illusion of Progress, which was released August 19th, 2008 under Flip and Atlantic Records. as well as Roadrunner Records. Singles Believe, All I Want, The Way I Am, and This Is It. Produced by Johnny K and Stained. And this one went down a little bit at number 3 on Billboard's. Now, I really love the album title as well as the album cover for this because it kind of like symbolizes the illusion of progress because it looks like he's walking, but he's actually kind of just sitting on a chair going nowhere. So it's the illusion of progress. Now, it's always been one of my favorite album names of all time just because it sounds really cool. It's really fun to say. So their latest release, which was just a self-titled, was released September 13th, 2011 under Atlantic and Roadrunner Records. It was produced by Johnny K and Stained again. Singles Not Again, Eyes Wide Open, Now, and Something to Remind You. This one went down a little bit further at number 5 on Billboard's and was the last album with John Wazowski ending a 16-year run with the original lineup, which is very impressive since the band does not achieve that very often because most bands switch out at least one member throughout their lifetime, but a 16-year run with the original lineup is a very impressive feat. So actually, I have seen, as I mentioned before, I have seen all 3 of them before, actually all in the same festival. And between all 3 of them, I'd say Stained was probably one of my least favorites, but they did still have a pretty good performance. My favorite would probably be Shinedown. Shinedown actually came like to the middle of the stage, or Brent Smith and the guitarist did, and played Simple Man. And I was actually very close to the point where if I had reached out enough, I probably could have touched Brent Smith. And it was really cool because the crowd really loved that final like encore of Simple Man. Stained was good on like the sound of the performance, but was very stiff. Like they didn't have too much energy, let's say, to them, or they didn't have too much of a stage presence. Godsmack actually had a lot of energy and sounded very good, as well as the previously mentioned dueling drummer thing. So I definitely suggest seeing Godsmack or Shinedown whenever possible. And honestly, Stained is definitely worth seeing too. They still sounded very good, which a lot of bands can't sound a lot like their albums live. So that's it for our band bios. But some of our new albums coming out, and it's been a while since our last episode, so there are a few, is Jeff Lynne's ELO, or Electric Light Orchestra, Alone in the Universe, which I really love Electric Light Orchestra, and I definitely want to cover them in a future episode, but for now, I suggest you guys check them out if you haven't already. I suggest their older stuff, meaning before it was labeled Jeff Lynne's, and it was just ELO. Another one was They Might Be Giants, Why, and Flaming Lips, Heady Nugs, which sounds very weird, and I would like to know the story behind that album title. Coldplay, Head Full of Dreams, and Fleetwood Mac, Tusk. Cage the Elephant, Tell Me I'm Pretty, which had a very weird album cover. And David Bowie makes his return with Black Star. Now, our album of the episode for this episode is Color and Sounds High. Now, I absolutely love this EP, and not only is it probably one of my favorite releases from Color and Sound, it's probably one of my favorite releases, period. Now, the good combination of like Chris's awesome lyrics with like the rest of the instruments make for a perfect 3-track little EP. My favorite song off the EP is actually Better View, which incorporates like synthesizers and everything with it, and just makes for a really cool, like almost like an atmosphere to the song in the album. Now, I am actually, as you may remember, Ali Mahoney on one of my earlier episodes was actually the singer for Color and Sound. And I am absolutely predict that you should listen to this album, and it's actually on a link on my website under my new tab, new music and new releases, or new music, news, and new releases. I opened this tab just recently and update it almost daily for all the newest music news and all of the newest releases. Whenever something gets released about a new album or new tour, you can usually find it on my on this page, as well as I do some reviews, including one for Color and Sounds High, where you can find the link to go listen to them. I am actually covering a Life on Hold reunion show. Life on Hold was a few of the members of Color and Sound's previous band on a reunion tour of a few different bands that haven't played together in quite some time. I will be covering it both on my website as well as on a later episode of my show, so keep a watch out for that, as well as a new special that I'm working on, Behind the Music. Have you ever asked the question, what goes into the music you love? Well, Behind the Music goes to answer that. I have gone around and tried to cover all aspects of the making of a song or an album into this hour-long special that should be available to you guys very soon, both on BCAT and on my website. I am very much looking forward to this because I had a lot of fun making it. On other news, I am still working on Dueling Dragon Productions, my movie studio, as well as many other media types, that has released a bunch of new stuff in the recent months that you should definitely go check out at duelingdragonpro.weebly.com. Further news on my website and further news on an episode of my show later on. This has been James' House of Rock. Thank you all for watching. I will see you soon.